Hey, everybody. Hi. Can you guys? I don't know if anyone's here. Who knows? Hello. It's me, Tristan, the host of this channel. If this is your first time here and you found this video later on, this is the countdown stream that I do every Thursday before a Step Back video comes out. Oh, I already see people are coming in. We got Rocco88, Jonathan Sims, and Big Seltzer. So, and Axel Procope, Jonathan Sims. Okay. So, yeah. So this is a thing I do every week before my new videos come out, where I hang out for an hour with my audience, talk about stuff. Right now I'm taking a break from getting next week's video finished, so hopefully I can get that done today. Let's see, who else is in here? Oh, it's Ricky Sonny Morales, 1688. Hal Fox, Neurotransmission, Comrade Ace. Hi to the Sexy History. Oh, gosh. The Gopher. Rose Dandy. That is a great name for like a cowboy or cowgirl or something. Rob Crumb. Robert Crumb. If you were the Robert Crumb, the famous one who made a bunch of comics in the 60s, that's kind of cool. I watched a documentary about Robert Crumb, and it is he is a very interesting and strange fellow. Kitty spotted, yes. Yeah, bring them a little closer. It's Romeo. This is my man. I have two cats. This is Romeo. So yeah, this show, this little 1 hour segment that I do once a week, is where I answer some questions and I run up to the release of a video. So he spells it Crumb. Okay, different Robert Crumb. Oh. But yeah, there's a documentary about Robert Crumb, and it's a pretty cool video. Or it's a pretty cool movie. I watched it. I took this when I was all right. I have a little bit of story about this. How I saw Crumb. So I saw Crumb, the documentary, when I was in community college because I had fucked up at high school and I wanted to go to university. And so when I wanted to go to university, I had to take like upgrade courses at the local community college. And one of the courses I took was a Friday morning, which, you know, in university terms, like no one ever wants to take a class on Friday morning. But this is a Friday morning class on documentaries where we would watch a documentary, talk about it for a little bit, and then we would go home. And we had one assignment for the whole class. It was such a joke. Yeah, I think I got 100% in that class, which just shows that some courses are just jokes. Anyways, let's see. Let's take some questions. But Crumb was one of the documentaries we watched. We also watched a movie about people's experiences, people who had been struck by lightning, their experiences, and it was actually a pretty good movie. We watched, that's where I watched Triumph of the Will with no subtitles. That is where I watched Grizzly Man. I'd already seen Grizzly Man. We watched it again. We watched Bowling for Columbine again, which I had seen. Yeah. So first question is from Rob Crumb, which is, what is today's video about? And today's video is part 2 of last week's video. So this is going to be a video about, it's titled, Why Is There No Palestine? And for Columbine. All right. Let's take a few more questions. Sorry, I'm writing these down so that I don't forget them. I see that Ace Beater the Bass has renamed himself to Comrade Ace. Alrighty. So Bowling for Columbine was a documentary that came out in 2002, and I think a lot of you might be a bit young to remember it, but it was quite a big and powerful documentary when it came out by Michael Moore about the situation on gun violence that happened. And it was just a little bit sensationalistic, just a tad. Definitely Michael Moore has a very emotional style to his documentaries. I don't think that that's a bad thing, but it is definitely his style. But yeah, he really hits the nail on the head over and over again on the major issues in American gun culture, especially the link between paranoia, the sort of fear state that had been created in America through media, and the link with racism and the fear of Black people as sort of the sources of why so many people feel this need to own weapons. So, yeah, it's a pretty tough documentary. But it's pretty good. Do you think that we don't learn more about figures like Hiawatha and Tecumseh in primary school? Well, we talk about Tecumseh in my primary school anyway. We did, because Tecumseh is like kind of a local figure to us, since I live in Southern Ontario, and that's sort of a thing that happens. So yeah, so Tecumseh, I guess, like, Tecumseh doesn't get a ton of attention. Mostly, I would probably say because of sort of racial injustice in our historical system. Hiawatha also doesn't get a lot of attention because a lot of the information we have about Hiawatha is from oral traditions. And even though there's been a lot of progress on this, the historical discipline still doesn't give enough credence to Iroquois or Haudenosaunee oral histories. And so Hiawatha, the details of Hiawatha's life are hard to suss out. Yeah, I will probably say that, there's some people talking about Michael Moore stuff. And Michael Moore was probably my gateway into becoming political. I think it was like the first big political thing that I watched was probably Bowling for Columbine. And I sort of read his books and branched out from there. How was Vegas? Vegas was ace. Vegas was kind of fun. I will say I did not enjoy it as much as I thought I would, but I did. Yeah, for anybody who's here, I went to Las Vegas last weekend for my dad's birthday. And I went there with my wife. We saw a couple shows. We drank some drinks. We did some gambling, some video poker, and then we came home. We walked around and saw a lot of sights. I think I like royally fucked up my feet. I had trouble walking for the last day. We did a bus tour of downtown Las Vegas, which was kind of fun to see a lot of the cool Wild Westy stuff. And yeah, we saw Blue Man Group and Cirque du Soleil, like, you know, the kind of things you do when you're when you do those things. So, you know, it was a thing. It was, I will say that there's some stuff about Las Vegas that I really hated. And when I was there, by the time I got home at the end of the day, I really hated some things about Las Vegas. Like, they have a monorail that helps you get up and down the strip, but that monorail is very poorly advertised and hidden at the back of a bunch of casinos. So there was no way for you to easily travel without having a car or taking a taxi. And that made things really annoying to get around. So if you went to do any sightseeing, you wound up just getting completely wiped out because everything is so spaced out there, but also there's no real transit. And just the idea of just you getting nickel and dime for everything. The $10 beers started to drive me insane. I started just if I wanted to drink, I would go to video poker and put $1 in the machine and play like 1 penny at a time, just because if you sat there, you could get beers for cheap. You get beers for cheap. So, you know, that, or for free, but, you know, you still have to tip. Will the Middle East ever be peaceful? The Middle East is it could be peaceful if you wanted to. The Middle East could be peaceful if we tried. The thing is, the Middle East and our concept of the nation state don't really overlap in a good way. And unfortunately, the way that the world order works right now is that we try to impose this concept of nation states and borders onto a region that have very, very big overlapping relationships with things like in the Middle East. There is different levels of identity that are not mutually exclusive and overlap with each other. There's different sects of Islam. There's different schools of Islam. There's also different ethnicities. There's different language groups. There's different tribes. And all of these groups live together in various different overlapping things. And like relative peace was easy to do when you had one empire ruling over all of them. But unfortunately, the way that the way that the country, the way it's set up now, is you have to have these governments that then try to legitimize themselves and make a national identity and use violence to impose the order on people, and it's never going to work out. You know, it's like creating Yugoslavia. It's just an impossible country to stick together unless you use horrible violence. And so if the Middle East were to have peace, they would have to draw their own borders, work it out themselves, have no borders at all, or turn into a major big Arab superstate. I feel like those are really the only real options for making some sort of lasting peace in the Middle East. But as long as we have these Western imposed countries, you're never going to have long lasting peace. Actually, I worked with Cody from the Alternate History Hub on a video about this subject. It's a two-parter that he's working on, and part 1 is already out, and part 2 is the alternate history scenario. So there's a little bit on that if you go and check it out. All right. What are some of your favorite beers? Well, I am a very big fan of IPAs. I don't really have a lot of go-tos except for we have one that's a kind of a local beer called Bone Shaker that most bars in Toronto have, but it's not really, you can probably find it elsewhere in Ontario, but it's not, I don't think it's sold much outside of Ontario, and I like that a lot. I do like really hoppy IPAs. I do like really hoppy beers. If I'm in a situation where I need to drink something that's just like available in a lot of bars, I typically will go to I typically will drink like Belgian Moon, or I think in America they call it Blue Moon. And I was drinking Blue Moons when I was in Las Vegas because that was the only beer they had on tap that I actually thought was tasty. I don't really drink like the watered down lagers or anything like that. It's not worth it to me. I don't really like the taste of them all that much. Neocolonialism, the main reason the Middle East isn't peaceful. I mean, there is also that extent that there's colonial imposition of borders that make no sense. All right. Oh gosh. Okay. Doughboy DeVito, what is the name of the scientific phenomenon where businesses make products shitty enough not to last forever, but too shitty so people buy them? That's called planned obsolescence, isn't it? Or just, the cost curve. Those are the two that I can think of about how shitty you can make something so that enough people buy it. Usually that's called the cost curve for the pricing and everything like that. But then there's also planned obsolescence, which is like why we have light bulbs that can last like 15, 16 years, but people still try to sell ones that burn out after a few days or a few years. So like there's a lot of things like that. And you'd be surprised. It's why everything is made out of shitty, cheap plastic these days. and you can't buy. People don't want to buy. Buying disposable things is an easy, more profitable option than buying things that will last a long time. I'd really love to have a type of. If I were to start a company that made like things instead of YouTube videos, it would probably be items that most people buy as disposable, but they would be a little bit more pricey, and they would have higher quality ingredients and higher quality stuff in it, so that they would last a long time. But it's really hard to find that in some cases, like things like computer bags and some other objects. It's actually really hard to find something that's well priced that lasts a long time. There's a subreddit called Buy It for Life that helps a lot, though. Yeah, Apple is a pretty big break of that. Why don't the people Middle East just unite in the name of communism? We've got a long way to do that, Ace. That's difficult, and there's a lot of hurdles towards that. Do dinosaurs still live or not? Dinosaurs do still live. There's a whole bunch of dinosaurs in my city. They're all over the place. They're called pigeons. Not all the dinosaurs went extinct. They just evolved into birds. So really, any bird is a dinosaur. And so, yes, dinosaurs still technically exist. I bought a Pulp Fiction shirt featuring Uma Thurman on Monday, and I was wondering if I should wear it to high school, and even though it might violate the dress code. How does it violate the dress code? Is it because it's like for like a violent movie? I mean, you could do that, but like, pick your battles. See you later, Doughboy. I mean, like, breaking the rules is great. I encourage breaking the rules whenever you feel you can. Just, if you're going to break the rules and you're going to be getting in trouble, make sure that you're doing it for a good cause. People who break school dress codes in order to show the double standard that they have towards women, like that's a noble cause to do it for. I'm not sure what the thing, what's it called, is for, the Pulp Fiction t-shirt. You'd have to give me more context on that one. I'm such a mensch. He'll respond to all of his fans, even about a high schooler dress code. I honestly don't remember having much of a dress code when I was in high school, but then again, I never dressed provocatively. I mean, I didn't even have. I still to this day rock the solid color T-shirts. Like, I am boring as shit. So in high school, I think I wore a leather jacket. That's the only difference between my wardrobe back then and my wardrobe now. Who's your favorite communist? Peter Kropotkin. Peter Kropotkin's my favorite communist. Girl, you done notice. Hey, I notice you, girl, you done notice. Welcome to the stream. You can see me in a crop top with cutoffs. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And a Hugh Hefner thong. Damn right. You know what? Pride's coming up in June. Maybe that I'll save it for that. Let's see. Have you ever heard of a small YouTuber called From Nothing? No, I have not. Corentin, if you know anything that is it a good YouTube channel? What's it about? I don't know. You see, Hannibal Luki, I wouldn't think that being a communist, I don't think that people who are tankies are communists because they don't believe in equality. They believe in tyranny by the government. So, I don't think that non-anarchists can be communists. They're just capitalists by another means. All right. Do you discuss the USS Liberty incident? In my video, I do not. What do you think a United States and Canada country would be like? Its government, economy, etc. I think that would depend a lot on the context of Canada and the United States joining. Uh, I don't exactly know what would cause Canada and America to join in a meaningful way. It would probably. I know that Canadians would have a really big issue with it. Most Canadians build their identity in opposition to the United States. I know that basically Canadian identity is focused on identifying ourselves in comparison with the United States, and joining would be really would require something really bad to happen. I think that our government systems are enough aligned that if Canada and the United States were to join, they could share we both have senators, we both have members of parliament. You just call them House of Representatives. So it's a thing that structure would probably still exist. Obviously, Canada joining the U.S. would probably have something to do with losing the monarchy. So we'd probably be okay with having a president as well. I think, though, that Canadians in the process of joining the United States or making some sort of united country would ask for a lot when it comes to things like preserving national sovereignty for the Quebecois and preserving a Canadian identity that is not American. And I think that a lot of things that we see you later, Corentin, à prochain. So, like, things that will cause a problem between the two of us or between the two countries would be a lot about, like, can we preserve our healthcare system? Because I don't think that we would join a country with private healthcare. Canadians value it too much. There's a lot of things that we would probably have to talk about. Do you know who lives in a pineapple under the sea? I believe that is Mr. Squarepants. SpongeBob SquarePants is kind of a little after my time, but I think that that's the thing. How long have you been married? Well, unfortunately, Corentin just left, but I have in June. So in 2 months, almost to the day, it's going to be 2 years. I got married in June of 2016. So almost 2 years. What do you think the worst case scenario, like World War III, happens? NATO will unite as one nation. I don't think that uniting as one country is a thing that's going to happen very much anymore. I think that you're more likely to see the borders we have now stay, especially in places like the NATO countries, stay pretty static for a long time. The more likely change will be to get rid of, or will be to break up countries where there's a few countries that have strong independence movements, like the United Kingdom and Spain, that could you could see breaking off into their own countries, but that would be more complicated. But that's the only type of, like, new countries I could see happening. I don't see any, like, joining. There'd be more like these, like, supranational agreements that aren't necessarily becoming one country, but aren't, like, complete union. And I think that there's going to be more smaller countries in big conglomerates. I guess that would be, like, the example. What do you think about tanky being introduced into the vernacular? I think it's good. I think that it's really important for people on the left to have the language to disassociate ourselves from authoritarian tankies who really have nothing to do with communism or socialism and have everything to do with violence, repression, and all of the horrors that regimes like the Soviet Union committed atrocities against in the 20th century. And I think that the tanky element of the left is the reason why the left has such a bad reputation. And the more we can distance ourselves from the crimes of the tankies in the past, the better. Okay. How much do you read, and how well do you retain that information effectively? I don't don't read as much as I should. I always have several books going at a time, and I try to make it a rule to read like a chapter of a book a day. I don't always stick to that, and sometimes I read more, sometimes I read less. I, as for retention, there was a time when I was reading a lot of books because I was doing my comprehensive exams, and one of the things that I would do after I read the book was to one of the things that I did after reading every book is I wrote myself a one-page summary for myself. And even if I didn't read it ever again, just having that one-page summary and like the process of writing it helped me contextualize it in my mind in a way that helped me retain a lot. And then there's the whole trick of you don't need to know the fact, you just need to know where the fact is. So in many cases, there's like numbers and data points that I could say, hey, at least I don't know that number, but I know where I could find it if I needed it. What if Alt His did a video about the fact that Argentina and the United States have a similar history and that their roles should have been switched or could have switched? Is that true? I do not know. I don't know much about the history of Argentina. What's one video you wanted to do / make, but you can't do it? One video that I've been wanting to do for a long time is a big Emma Goldman video. Like most of the time when I don't do my video, or when I don't do a video on a subject, it's either because there's not a lot of interest in it outside of myself, or because somebody already did a video that pretty much does what I would have done about it. And there's been an Emma Goldman video that's been like something that I've been wanting to do for a long time, because Emma Goldman's one of my favorite probably actually is my favorite historical figure. And Anita Sarkeesian did a really, really good video about Emma Goldman. I actually met Anita Sarkeesian last year, and we talked for quite a while about how much I love Emma Goldman. And so, yeah, that's the thing that would be up there. Some of the ones that you guys request, there's some videos I would like to make because I know that like some of you really hardcore viewers really have been wanting me to make them, but these are videos that would require the main reason why I can't make them is because there's very little information about them, and the information that does exist is usually not in English and not in a language that I even come close to understanding. This is things like the autonomous Shinmin region of northern Korea, like the Korean, or like the Korean Autonomous Zone and the Shinmin, and like there's a few other of these kind of anarcho-syndicalist communes that existed in different points in history, but they're very poorly documented and they're very hard to learn about. Girl you don't notice, is your wife a historian? My wife is not a historian. She does have a PhD though. She is a psychologist, and she works for the government. So she's a policy analyst for the government who has a PhD in psychology. What do you think that Bernie will do? Do you think that Bernie can do to deal with the DCCC trying to screw him in the primary? I think that given the way that Sanders has maneuvered his campaign ever since the 2016 primaries, that there's a lot of people who are paying attention more now to the primary process. And I do think that the Democratic primaries are going to be way more scrutinized by the public than they were last time. So if they're going to try to screw over Bernie Sanders, they've got a lot of work to do, because he's got the most recognizable position. He's got the most recognizable name in like the field of people who are talking about it. And I think that he's pretty good at branding, it seems, and there's a lot of movement, there's a lot of energy behind his stuff. The thing is, it's going to be a big field, and he's going to have a big advantage on that. And the DCCC seems to be immune to learning their lessons. So they are going to try to screw them over in some of the same dumb ways they did last time. And it's not going to work very well. It's not going to work nearly as well as it did last time because Hillary Clinton at least had like the celebrity aspect to it. And I don't see Cory Booker or Kamala Harris coming close to having the same amount of prestige and recognizability that Sanders has by next year is really when things get started. Will you ever shave your beard? Oh, I mean, I have many times. My wife likes my beard, so you know, my hairstyle and facial hair look are very much dedicated to making my wife happy. For the longest time, I used to just have kind of a goatee, as you probably know from like the cartoon version of me. But this look I have now, I'm pretty happy with. But you know, never say never. I'm sure that once I get like old and start getting like a lot more gray hair, like when I have more gray hair than non-gray hair, that maybe having a beard will look a little less good. It'll look a little crappier, and then I might get rid of it. But at the moment, I don't see that. I don't see anything crazy happening. Let me just silence my phone real quick. All right. Do you think that Orwell's 1984 is a misrepresentation of socialism? Nope. I think that 1984 is a very accurate representation of the socialism of the time in which he was writing, specifically the tanky socialism of Stalin's USSR. And I think that if you read Animal Farm as well as 1984, you'll know that Orwell knows that terrible people and terrible governments can still exist using the trappings of a good idea. And yeah, the Soviet Union was definitely that. Are comps open book? Yes, comps, well, at least mine were. My comps were open book. I wrote them in 2016. So what comps are is that it's a series of exams you do about halfway through your PhD, where you have to read about 80 to 100 books in about a year. And then you write a really big test, which is usually 2 20-page essays. Always, in my case, it was one big 30-page essay that was due at the end of the year that you could start right away. Then there were 2 20-page essays that you were given a week to write. So I was given a week to do each 20-page essay. And then that'd be after the 30-page essay was done. So basically you'd read for a year building a big 30-page essay. Then you would hand that in, and then you'd have 1 week to write a 20-page essay where they would give you the question at the beginning of the week, and you had to hand it in by the end of the week. And then you do it again the next week. And I did that in 2016. I remember because one of the things they were considering doing was letting us have an extra day for one of the weeks, because it was during one of the weeks was when Donald Trump got elected. And everyone who was writing at the same time had like lost an entire day of their comps test because they were basically in shock. As many of us, I think, were the day after Trump got elected. And so, yeah, that was rough. They were very busy, very stressful weeks, but they happened and they were done. But yeah, I had all of those notes that I had written that I had told you about when I had all those books. So I was able to find the things that I needed. On top of that, I also digitized all of my books, which meant I could search all the books that I had collected. I see Shakar is here. And I see Doughboy DeVito's back. Congratulations. Are you going to tell us to defoo our loved ones to learn history? I think everyone should learn history. History's fun. Is your wife secretly a government spy? I don't think so. I met her before she started working for the government, and she's also an immigrant from the United States. So if she is a spy, then she's playing the very, very long game, because she only got her job for the government less than a year ago. And before that, she was a grad student, and we were grad students together. And she also immigrated from the United States. So, like, she's a permanent resident in Canada. Oh, it's a lot of work to be a spy. Oh, my. Lots of questions. All right. How many of you view Jesus as a historical figure? Does it matter that he is or he is not? Jesus was probably a historical figure. I don't know if there's anything about him that actually is factual that survives to today. But it does seem that there's enough evidence to say that it's more likely that he exists than he didn't. But when you're talking about things that are thousands of years ago, it would be tough. All right. How much do you get paid? Enough to pay rent, but not enough to do fun stuff very often. Most of the time when I get to do cool stuff, like when I went to Las Vegas, it was because of a generosity of my parents. What's your favorite uncommon food? Depends. I eat like, it depends upon where you consider. Like, I like shawarma a lot. That's probably my favorite food. But that's not super rare. That's like, common Middle Eastern street food. I like kimchi a lot, but like Koreans eat that shit like it's going out of style. Jeez. Why don't I have a good answer for this? Shouldn't I have a favorite uncommon food? Well, crap. Okay. Ante for the three ideologies in English: socialism, neo-Bolshevism, and the obliteration of the self, maybe some form of Buddhism. Yeah, I don't know about the bigger. I don't get caught up in the world building of a lot of stories like that, so I don't really know precisely, to be honest. But yeah, it does sound about right. There is a kind of Buddhism in undoing the self. You digitize your books, like stood at the scanner for hours, type to digitize. Yeah, I scanned a few books. We have a book scanner at the lab in my office. And on top of that, we have, I was able to find a lot of digital books, and you can if you know where to look. Let's see. What are your thoughts on Lenin? Lenin was a complicated figure. Definitely don't agree with his politics precisely. I like that he brought Marxism to the real world for the first time in a big way, but still, his methods I definitely could not get behind, and I don't think the ends justifies the means in any way. Who was the worst president? Why was it Woodrow Wilson? I honestly think that it was Ronald Reagan. So, although Andrew Jackson comes pretty close, Andrew Johnson probably even worse. So, yeah, Andrew Johnson, Andrew Jackson, Ronald Reagan, all those guys were pretty terrible. Can you do a history of video games? I could do a history of video games, but would anybody want to watch a history of video games? Like, I'm not even sure what the story would be, except we made this video game, and then this video game, and then this video game. I feel like if I did a history of video games, it would be really hard for me to think what the angle would be. What would be the story? Except for like a procession of games coming out and technology improving. But if anyone you have thoughts on that, that'd be good. Since I was gone, what were your thoughts on wearing a dress code violating Uma Thurman t-shirt? You do it if you want to. You just do it if you want. It's just that there are consequences to your action, and if it's not, if it doesn't worry so much, then like if you're not doing it for a good cause, and if it's not worth doing, then don't worry about it. Could you please do a post World War One Germany series? Yeah, I I I'm thinking of making a bigger thing out of the brief history of country series, like the brief history of Ethiopia that I did. And the first one I have on my list is to do next is a brief history of Germany, trying to do it as a collaboration with Emperor Tiger Star. And so that is on my list to do a brief history of Germany, and that period will definitely be in it. If the New England states and the New York state formed the Republic of New England, do you think the country in the world would be like, I don't know. The thing about these like alternate scenarios that these alternate scenarios people think of, like, are they a solution? Like, the context about their creation would be the biggest deal in trying to figure out what they would be, and like how you get from America now to an America where New York and New England just all decide to quit says a lot about how it's going to end up. So you'd have to think through like what the scenario would be. Otherwise, it'd be kind of hard to really decide. Have you eaten falafel yet? Of course I have. I was a vegetarian for like almost a year, and I still like the shawarma place that I used to get food at, and so I would get falafel. Yeah, yeah, falafel's great. How many languages do you know? I know 3. I'm okay. Okay, I speak English fluently, as fluently as I can, anyway. I speak French pretty well. I'm not super great at writing, but I'm okay at French. I'm solidly okay at French. Spanish, I have taken courses and I have studied quite a bit. I am more rusty. I don't practice it as much. My Spanish is a little awkward, but and my vocabulary is rather small. But that would be a different. If I practice my Spanish, I could get much better than I am now. And I've taken a little tiny bit of Turkish, but not enough to be able to do anything super useful. I would like to learn Arabic at some point in the future. That's the next language I want to learn. It's just how to do that. I haven't been able to get a good way to teach learn Arabic yet. What do you think of BDS? I think BDS is a great idea. BDS is a pretty important thing. I think that it's like the best non-violent way of opposing Israel's treatment of Palestinians without, in a way that actually might affect them, because I think that it's sort of using the same tactics that people were using against South Africa in the 80s for a very similar purpose. What historical figure do you admire the most? I would probably say Emma Goldman again. She is like my go-to for like favorite historical figure, but she had a strong set of beliefs. She was a crusader for the thing that she believed in, and she did the right thing even when she had to sacrifice for it. She was a peace advocate during World War I, and she got deported for that. And I just kind of hope that if I was ever in a situation where I had to choose between doing the right thing and suffering heavy consequences, that I would do that, like she did. That's the part where I think that she's really admirable. And like I said, I want to make a video about her someday, but it would be a very special thing for me, and I haven't figured out how to do that yet. especially because, you know, Ania Sarkeesian already made that really good video about her, and I would like to build on that in some way. Would you do a step back video on the Mongols? Well, Mr. The Girthax. Yeah. Yeah, I would. I have to, again, the issue is not so much doing the video, it's what's the angle? Like, I need to have like a good narrative structure, because there's like a lot of YouTube videos about the Mongols, and I don't really want to tell the story of Temujin or Genghis Khan or whatever, because that's not really that's a story that's already been told many times. And so I would need to find a good angle on the Mongols to talk about in a way that would make for a compelling story. And unfortunately, the Mongols didn't have any writing, so they don't have a ton of stories about their own history, and so it'd be kind of difficult to do. But that would be the thing that holds me back. I would like to see a video on the influence of trade unions in Europe after the win on the Bolsheviks in Russia and the gains on the working rights. Well, Mac, there's a video coming out on this channel about that closer to the end of the month, so hang tight. I'm making a International Workers' Day video that's already finished, or it's filmed, so but it's gonna come out at the end of the month. How much longer do you think our modern world will last with peace in Europe, many not that big wars? Honestly, I think that the age of really big wars, like world wars, are kind of over. I feel like there was a certain level of industrialization and a lack of certain other technologies that there was really a moment for the world wars, because it was the point of high levels of organization and high industrialization, but without the increase in communications technology, without the internet, without computers, without nuclear weapons, that really the world wars could occur in. And if we had not developed those technologies, if like the nuclear bomb had not been developed, a World War III would be pretty difficult. But I don't see World War III happening anymore. I just think the consequences are too high. And if World War III happened, it would probably take out the rest of the species with it. So, you know, wouldn't last long. So, you know, it's hard. Who was the best president? Why was it FDR? FDR is a pretty good one to choose. He did a lot of really good stuff. LBJ probably up there too. Jimmy Carter has been a great former president, but he wasn't a very good president. Even Barack Obama had his plus sides. He at least tried to do some good things. He failed to do a lot of good things, but you know, but yeah, as far as good presidents go, I'd probably say, for the amount of things that he did for FDR, yeah, FDR probably did a lot of good stuff. Have you made a video about historiography outside Europe? What about the Persian view of the cycles of history: rise, decadence, conquest, repeat? I haven't done that. Historiography is a hard thing to write compelling scripts about. Not saying I wouldn't do it. I just have to it's another one of those videos where I'd have to find a good way to talk about it that didn't just feel like a listicle. Would you want to do a hangout with me and the cynical historian sometime about common historical myths we hear in political debates? I'd like to do a hangout with some. Brendan Davison. I'd have to see. I don't know what your YouTube channel is about. I don't know. It's possible. It would be. You have to see about arranging it. But yeah, that's. I mean, I'm not like I'm not like guaranteeing that I would do something, but I know Cipher. So yes, FDR is Roosevelt. Yeah. So do you think we will? How do you think we will avoid World War III? As in, how do you think we will create everlasting peace? I don't know about everlasting peace. That's a tough one to do. I do think that nuclear weapons did a pretty good job at avoiding World War III. I don't see World War, like I don't see the fault lines that would create the context of a World War III happening. We're just past that technological point in history. I'm very much a technological determinist on this, but I do think that there was a moment where the world wars could happen, and it is over. And so, repeating it would be hard. It would take some really big changes to happen in the world, which might be able to happen. But this is something I'd really like to not be proven wrong on. Lots of small wars, proxy wars, cold wars. Yeah, those are going to be the thing in the future. But like straight up wars, like United States declares war on Russia and they like duke it out over nuclear bombs. Like I doubt it. I really do. Unless something really big changes, like there's these new hypersonic missile things that look like they could change warfare in quite a big way, but the effects of that are still far from determined. What do you think of the Skripal assault in England? I don't know what that is. Today is the second part of the Israel video. Yes, it is. Yes, the second part of the Israel video comes out in 8 minutes. Oh my God. Yeah, 8 minutes. The video is called "Why Is There No Palestine?" It's been up for almost 10 days for my patrons, and it seems to have gotten a good review. So I'm excited to see how you guys think about it. But I felt a little conflicted about releasing it because when I released my Israel video, then the next day there was a horrible act of violence against the Gaza protesters. And I was thinking, does this mean my next video either should be delayed, or does that mean that it's like super important to release it right now while people are thinking about this stuff? Oh, you're talking about the Russian agent of the polonium thing? That's crazy. When I found out that like the poison that was done on that guy with the polonium would have cost about $10 million to make. Like the poison, like Russia paid $10 million to poison this guy. That's crazy. I know Russia really likes to basically murder its critics, which is fun. But yeah. I mean, it's not cool. I just think that the hijinks that Russia gets to in order to kill people is crazy. What are your other videos planned after this one? Well, right now I'm working on a video about taxes. Because next week is close to tax day for the Americans. I have one more Know Your Fantasy, and then I'm kind of ending the Know Your Fantasy series because nobody wants to watch it. How much time is your new video? My new video is 17 minutes and 10 seconds. My next video, the one that comes out in 10 minutes, is the longest step back video ever made. It's 17 minutes and 10 seconds, so you've got a lot to chew through. Do you wish you had put something else into the upcoming video? Yes, it was already really long, but I would have really liked to have more of a discussion about Israel today and how Israel fights on the public relations front. Like Hezra or something like that, their organization that tries to actually do like internet propaganda and trying to just sending people out and funding people to do all sorts of like interventions and things like that abroad. It's so weird. There's so much more to talk about with the actual history of Israel and how Israel tries to manage itself in the world and not have people not question the way that it attacks the USSR, attacks its own and colonizes its own people. And I do think that I wish I could have fit more into that, but unfortunately, I had to cut some stuff for time, and focusing on the history seemed like the bigger option. Have you started to watch Three Arrows? I did watch the Three Arrows video that came out recently. I watched the Three Arrows video that everybody was mirroring, and I thought it was pretty good. I should watch some more. Since the U.S. President Trump acts like an idiot, who do you think the free world will see as the leader of the free world? Either we won't see a leader of the free world, or I think that a lot of people are turning to Angela Merkel. Whether she's a good leader of the free world, I mean, better than Trump. Who's your favorite YouTuber except for yourself? ContraPoints. ContraPoints is probably, yeah, somebody already guessed it. ContraPoints is probably one of my favorite YouTubers. I also really like Sean of Sean and Jen. The Sean and Jen videos are probably some of the best researched, well written videos I think I've ever seen. And H Bomber Guy. Those are the three, and Lindsay Ellis and Foldable Human. Those channels are all of the videos that those are all the channels where if they upload a video, I want to watch it right away. So I guess that's a good measure. Also, Peter Coffin, his channel's got some pretty good stuff too. I really like when he does. Who's Jen? Apparently, Sean of Sean and Jen had a gaming channel, and then Jen kind of stepped back as he became more of like a political thing. So, what do you think about the recent Russia-UK stuff going on? Does the UK need definitive proof that Russia was the culprit, or do we only need to see anecdotal evidence that we currently have? I mean, it's not so much anecdotal evidence. It's one more piece in a very large story of Russia doing this. Like, this is very much in the Russian playbook. I mean, if somebody was going to go on trial for it, you need more evidence, but they have plenty of good reason to believe that Russia was behind it. Do you try and watch videos that aren't political? I watch a lot of stuff that is of like Extra Credits is a really good YouTube channel, and they're not super political. Their history stuff is pretty good. I also watch a lot of stuff about D&D because I'm trying to get better at being a dungeon master and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of my Dungeons and Dragons videos, I just didn't think that you guys would find those all that interesting. Yeah. Do you consider yourself a socialist, or are you a socialdem? I consider myself an anarcho-pacifist. I think that's the best series of labels, or progressive techno-Marxist. That's another fun one. Somewhere between those two. Fully automated luxury gay space anarchism. That's a good one too. Nerd. Yeah, I'm a huge nerd. Oh, and the time is, look at the time. What do you know? All right, I'm going to go load up my video and get to you guys before we call it a week. And yeah, that's a thing. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for coming out to the stream today. It's been a blast. I hope that you enjoy the next video. I hope that you guys really enjoy it. And of course, liking, sharing, and subscribing is always welcome in my book. So please have a good one. I'll see you guys next Thursday. Bye.